Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today's presentation is sponsored by the library at Doña Ana Community College. And we're going to discuss how to improve your study skills. But this slide here, hopefully everyone can see it. It's just some tips for you. This presentation is going to be recorded, so if you miss part of it, or if you wish to review it, or if you want to share it with friends or others, know that it will be available in the near future. Just stay in contact with me or us, the librarian, and we'll let you know when that becomes available, and we'll share the link. Please mute your microphones, and we really don't need you to have your video on. That actually would, I think, decrease the bandwidth that's required, but there's not too many of us, so I don't think that's an issue. I have my work colleagues online with me, Teresa DeSimio and Susan Bontley, and they can help out. They will be helping out as well. So if you have comments or questions, you can use the chat box. They'll be monitoring that or any other issues you may have, technical or otherwise. Let them know, and they can help you with that. Okay. So the name of the presentation is called Studying 101, How to Study Smarter and Not Harder. Okay, and here's some contact information for you. Like I said, my name is Jose Aranda. I work at the library. If you need to reach me, there is my email and my office telephone. And up in the right-hand corner are more information about the library. We have two main campuses, and their phone numbers are there. The email to the library general is there, and the URL to our website as well up in the right-hand corner. If you want to learn more about what else we've presented online, we have them neatly organized in what are called live guides or research guides by topic. So you can review some of the past presentations that are relevant, and I'll mention that when I get towards the end and share a couple of library resources. I've done presentations on each of those resources. So for example, you could go back through the library website and view those recordings and or any other, access any other resource the library has, or ask us for information. So we're here to help you. The objective here is to twofold, to make you aware of what the library has to offer, but also to improve hopefully your knowledge and study skills to make you a better student here at DACC. So without further ado, I will begin by saying, reading is not studying. It's not enough to just read. Whether you're new as a student or you've been around, hopefully the idea here is to emphasize that to be successful in studying, reading is just the beginning, okay? And I'll share with you some tips in a bit on what you can do before, during, and after you read that can help supplement as you read and prepare you for studying the material for your classes, whether it's for an exam or an upcoming assignment, or just to really learn the material that you're covering in class. Okay, so this slide is basically introducing this idea that, for example, I teach part-time, and I know students are busy, and I know it's a tough time right now, and they sometimes procrastinate and leave the reading until the night before, and they cram it in, and they think once they finish the reading that they're ready to do whatever is next, right? Discuss or take an exam or an assignment. And so what this slide is trying to tell us here is that don't do that. Reading should be done ahead of time, and the rest of the presentation is going to hopefully explain to you what else you can do so that you really learn the material, quiz yourself, use a variety of mnemonics for memorizing and practice and writing and note taking, all that stuff, so that when you do that, let's say a couple days before the due date for your class, you are really prepared, you know your stuff, and you'll do well in whatever it is you're going to be assessed in class. So the point here is that reading is just not enough. It's not studying. Especially in college, some of these classes are real dense and they cover a lot of content. And it could be tricky, especially if you're a new student, how to decipher that and, what to expect on the exam, for example. So if you have excellent studying skills, I think you will be well prepared to handle whatever it is that comes your way in your class, and you'll feel good about yourself. And the ideal is to do your studying, do all this hard work in advance of the due date. And I remember hearing this when I was a student, and it took me a long time, but I think I really believe in it. When you do that, you'll feel good about yourself. And the night before the exam, for example, it's the time to relax. Watch a movie, go for a bike ride, have a nice evening, sleep well. That way, when you wake up the next day, you'll be able to attack whatever assessment or assignment or exam that's waiting for you, because you've done all the work ahead of time and you feel good about yourself. So hopefully we can help you get there. So there's some text here about how your brain works, and I'm not going to go too much into that, but the majority of this presentation is taken from a handout that I'll list at the end of the presentation from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And they have lots of good information. I'm not covering it all. I'm only using parts of it. So if you wish to explore what else they offer, I'll provide those links at the end. But active reading is engaging with the text and having a purpose. So more than just reading. And hopefully the tips that I'll cover in just a second will help explain that a little better. If you have any questions, you can use a chat box and my colleagues will make sure that they're addressed. I'll try to take a break halfway through the presentation. This presentation is only 20-25 minutes long. And if not, at the end of the presentation too, we can entertain any questions. So reading comprehension. If you don't know what reading comprehension is, instructors many times, many of their assignments or exam questions have, not always, but many of them have questions that they ask their students to see two things: to see if they read the material and how well they understood it. So that's what reading comprehension is. So you can say, well, I read the material, but I can't, I still didn't do well on the exam. Well, again, reading is just the start. It's just the beginning. What else did you do? Did you spend time with the content? What did you do to help you really understand the material? So there are 3 stages in the reading that in a second I'll show you some advice of things you can do before you read, as you read, and after you read to help you really understand the material. Before you read, first point is to know your purpose. I know many of you students have many classes or more than one class. So there's some balancing that you have to manage there with your schedule and due dates and all the requirements and assignments. But when you read, knowing your purpose means You really want to have that state of mind of what you're about to read so that you could get ready, okay? Consider your purpose for the reading and what you need to be able to understand, know, or do after reading. And keep this purpose in mind as you read. So that's what knowing your purpose is. Integrate prior knowledge, right? So if you can always tie whatever it is you're reading or new content that you're being exposed to past experience, to things you already know, studies show that is the chances of, when you do that, the chances of you memorizing and really understanding the material increase. So finding ways to tie what you're about to read or the topics you're about to encounter, how they relate to what you already know, building upon your knowledge. And that is a good way to help you right before reading, right? So you already know so much, why not help yourself out, right? Before reading the text, determine what you already know about the material you are to read. Think about how the reading relates to other course topics and ask why your professor might have assigned this text. Identify personal experiences or secondhand knowledge that relates to the topic. Make a list of things you want to know about the text or questions that you want to try to answer while you read. That is integrate prior knowledge. Preview the text. Don't just start reading from page one. I know I used to do that. What this point is trying to tell us is that there are some ways that you could preview the entire text by scanning to see what kind of main headings, what kind of chapters are included. All this can help you get ready before reading so that you have an idea of what's in store. When I was in school, I don't know if they still use this, but SQ3R was real popular, and it was a technique that showed us students of how to do the survey, ask questions, and so that may be something that's still around, I'm not sure, but the point here is take a look at all the headings, the diagrams, the tables, the pictures, the bolded words, the summaries, and the key questions. Read the introduction, read the conclusion, read whatever is available to you that you want in a way to help you prepare for what you're about to read. And a good way to do that is to view the table of contents. As a librarian, we help students do research, and many times when I'm helping a student, I show them a book and they're like, well, I don't want to read the whole book. And many times I have to explain to them, no, you don't have to read the whole book. Look at the table of contents or look at the index. Look for keywords or the information that you can use for your purpose, and then just go to that page and use that part. So previewing the text, that's what the third concept on this slide is talking about. Number 4, break readings into manageable chunks. This is really important, especially if you have to do a lot of reading. And I think in another slide, we'll talk about creating an environment that's conducive to help you read. Because if you're in a situation where you're uncomfortable or you're being distracted or you know, something's not perfect for the environment for you to read, it's going to distract you, and you may not be able to read as much as you wanted or understand the material if you do. So by breaking it into chunks, that could be some good advice for you. Setting a schedule. Maybe there's a certain time of the day that is best for you, when it's quieter, when you have access to kitchen table, for example, whatever the point, and plan it out. Say, okay, you know, I got to read 2 chapters by Friday. I'm going to break it up. I'm going to make sure that every night I read at least 30 minutes or something like that. That's what this point is talking about. And then the last point here is reading from a screen. Some of us are okay with reading from a computer screen or a tablet or whatever device. If that's you and you're comfortable, then go for it. But some of us do not like that. Some of us have problems with our eyesight, and I prefer print for many other reasons. But the point here is to make sure that if you are, especially if you're taking an online course and you're going to be exposed to a lot of online reading, meaning there is no other format. Sometimes instructors will provide readings in more than one format, maybe a PDF, maybe they'll give you the link, maybe a Word document. So just know that this is something to consider, especially if it's a problem for you and you can't adjust. I'm sorry, and you can't read online. We need to find ways to adjust. So that's what this last point is reading from a screen. So those suggestions were before reading, and the next slide is going to tell us about things we can do as we read. First one, self-monitor. The only one who can make sure you're engaged with reading is you. If you are able to think about what you will eat for dinner or what will happen next on that Netflix show you love, you're no longer paying attention. As soon as you notice your mind drifting, stop. Consider your needs. Okay? Do you need a break? Is the chair comfortable enough? Is it too cold? Is it too hot? Is that noise outside distracting you? Whatever it is, you need to be conscious of all these factors because you want to make sure as you read, it is as the environment is as conducive in helping you read and memorize the material, understand the material as possible. And if it's not, you need to acknowledge and take action. That's what this point's about. So always keep that in mind. There's some people that can read in a busy train, on a busy train or bus or in public, whatever. It doesn't bother them. The TV's on. If that's you, all power to you. But some of us need, special situations, real quiet, whatever it is. Just know that about yourself. Okay. The next point is annotate, not just highlight. Sometimes you see students just highlighting lots and lots of text. Sometimes that helps, but when you highlight a lot of text, you're going to have to read the entire paragraph anyways. So the point here is telling you don't highlight, annotate. And what that means is you want to write, and that's why some instructors recommend writing on the margins or in the side of whatever, if it's a book you're going to keep or you bought. If not, you can do this on a separate page as you take notes. But as you read, jot down notes. You can write down the main topic that you're reading to help you focus, or as you read, maybe you have a question, you come across a term you don't understand, write that down, or maybe you're in your mind connecting it to something else the instructor mentioned at last week's lecture, and you're not sure if that is a cause and effect relations or a connection, whatever it is, you want to take notes as you read. That would help you definitely more than highlighting. But highlighting can still be successful if it's done right and appropriate, and if it's used to help you study. So if you do both, maybe you'll hit the nail on the head with this one. Number 3, develop a system. So as you annotate, none of us take notes the same, right? Some write long sentences, others just write 1-2 word phrases. Some of us use outline, whatever style or format you use as you take notes, as long as it works for you is fine. Here are some suggestions here under develop a system that is suggested as you write notes and read. So you can write down all the key ideas and major points, the words you don't understand or the ones you think are very important, key words, connections, I mentioned that earlier, or if you have questions. This is engaging in the reading. Okay, you're not just reading, you're engaging because you're taking notes on the side. It's very useful, very important. The next point is summarize in your own words. Some instructors will use summary as a form of assessment for students, especially based on their reading. So you may have questions about summarize, the life of Napoleon Bonaparte in under 500 words or something, as an example. So a summary is an important skill to have. Are you able to read the content and then in your own words produce a summary? That is an important skill. Sometimes it doesn't come quick. It's something we need to work on, but it's definitely important to do as you read, so that when you're done reading, you have notes from the system you developed that you can then use to write your summary. And the last part here is ask hard questions, okay? If you're really engaging with the material and you're thinking about it as you read, hopefully you come up with some questions. What does this mean? How does this affect what we talked about last week? Or even, simple questions like, is this going to be on the test? And if you have a list of these types of questions, then when you go speak with your professor or to your study group, you have them ready and you can share them. And as the answers are given to you, you'll write them down and you'll be that much better prepared. So these were the tips as you read that you should consider. And then there's after you read, right? So you want to check in with yourself. Whether you read a printed text or an online document, the most important thing to assess is how much you understood from your reading. This metacognitive skill is one of the hardest to practice, because if you truly miss the mark on what you read, you might not know until you get to class, or worse, until the test date. So how do you check yourself? So try cross-referencing. The information you read with simpler writing on the same subject and discussing your takeaways with peers. Okay, now with the internet, that could be easily done, right? You read the text, and you still have some doubt or some questions. And if you research other resources to check, that could help you do that. That's called cross-referencing. If you and your peers vary widely in your takeaways, go back to the text to see if the presentation of evidence can account for these discrepancies. Some questions to ask: are there multiple possible answers here? Is there a blind spot in your knowledge on the subject? Is the language of the text difficult or unclear? Are different sources on the same topic using consistent language? Or are they using different language to discuss the same or similar things? Okay, check with yourself. Show what you know is the next one. Show what you know. Create an outline of the text from memory, starting with the main points, and I'll provide you with some examples later in another presentation where I'm going to talk about how to write outlines, but there is a slide here with another example of mapping. But these are ways you can show what you know. Discuss the material with friends or a study group. Call a family member and try to teach them. I'm a big supporter of this notion of, if you can teach a sixth grader in your own words what you just read or learned in your college class, chances are you understand the material. Brain dump, write down everything you can remember from the reading in 5 minutes. Ask yourself critical questions about the reading and answer those questions in a timed format. Identify the important concepts for the reading and provide examples and non-examples of each concept. Very, very good. Create a concept map from memory to illustrate your learning from the assigned reading. I'll show you what that looks like in a couple slides. And take screenshots from digital text as a starting point for class notes and annotation. The third point is investigate further. And as libraries, we can help you with that. We can help you find other sources and materials to help you do research and investigate further what it is you're studying or reading. So visit the library or other resources on campus that can help you do this. I will mention the ARC, the Tutoring Center, at the end, another great resource to use. But if you have doubts or questions or an interest to continue after you've read what you had to read, please do so. And the last one is self-test. I'll show you a couple of library resources at the end of this presentation that will help you do a variety of the things that I'm covering in this presentation. One in particular is the self-test. Create flashcards or an outline for the main concepts to quiz you on the terms, the dates, the topical informations that you're required to know for that class. Use flashcards or outlines to test yourself on what you read and see how much you remember and can explain correctly. Cover the answers or explanations. Don't look at them until you have already answered them and explained in your own words. Pause videos periodically if you're watching them and use your own knowledge to supply an answer or predict where the video is going. Then hit play to see if you're on track. Self-testing in this way will help you synthesize and think through the information and recall it better in the future. Those were the points of before, during, and after reading that is suggested to improve our study skills. Now, this concept of active studying means you need to do more than reading, right? We've already covered that. But here are some examples of ways to do that. You can create a study guide because you were taking notes as you were reading, right? And with that information, you can create study guides to help you study. Here are two examples of how to do that, okay? You have here statements or questions with blanks of key terms. And you can quiz yourself by creating something like this. You can even get assistance from your instructor if he or she doesn't already provide one in creating one to help you study, and then you would fill in the blanks. Here are two examples of how that's done. There are many more examples online. If you look, if you search for study guides and active study. Become a teacher. Become the teacher. Say the information out loud. If you have access to a whiteboard or a bulletin board or even just on scratch paper, see if you can cover the content as if you were the instructor. I know this is a common strategy used in school in general, and it works. Try to get examples that relate to your own experiences. Teaching the material is an excellent way of learning the material. This is an example of a concept map. Now, there are many online. If you Google concept maps, you will find many of them, and they don't have to look this pretty. Okay, this was obviously done on a computer, and it looks very nice and pretty. I do these all the time, and I write them on my notes, handwritten, and many times they're very sloppy. But I make sure that whatever circles that I'm using or whatever it is I'm included in my map makes sense to me. Okay, so here's one example. We're all different. We're probably all, if we use this method, gonna create one that's gonna be different. But the point here is, especially if you're a visual learner, something like this is immensely important and effective in helping you study. Symbols. Use symbols. Especially if you're taking notes and it's a lecture and the instructor is just talking too fast, or the PowerPoint slides are going too fast for you to write down everything. Learn to write using symbols, especially for common words that get repeated or simple words that you understand for yourself. The plus sign, I use the plus sign a lot just to substitute and, or to merge two concepts. And then I use the equal sign to tell me, okay, this is a conclusion, or this is the result, or this is the consequence. Arrows are real good, especially if you're trying to connect concepts, or if you're trying to create some kind of cause and effect, or understand how the process is going. The arrows are very useful, and that's just one arrow going in one direction. Yours can be handwritten and in any direction you wish. There are many symbols out there, ladies and gentlemen, but the last one I'm going to explain is the triangle. This is something I learned, I think, in junior high, in algebra, pre-algebra. And I don't know why it stuck with me, but I learned it and I, to this day, use it. Triangle in algebra means change. So whenever I'm writing notes and if I'm pressed for time, I will use the triangle to symbolize or to signify change. And I've been using it for so many years now that it's automatic for me. So you can create your own symbols. There's nothing that says you can't, as long as you understand it and it helps you. These are shortcuts to help us stay active in our studying. And you could also Google and search other examples or talk amongst your friends how and what symbols they use, okay? For non-technical classes, such as English, history, psychology, you want to figure out what the big ideas are, right? So you can explain, contrast, and reevaluate them. The big ideas are going to be listed at the beginning of the module, the beginning of the chapter, or unit. And many times, they're also the student learning outcomes that are listed, again, for that module or for the class. And if you're unsure about this, ask your instructor and they'll help you. If you have these big ideas ahead of time, then you can work on the other parts of explaining, contrasting, and evaluating them to help you study for that class. For technical classes, you want to work the problem and explain the steps and why you got the work you did. Okay. So there's some differentiation between technical and non-technical classes. And the last one is study in terms of questions, evidence, and conclusions. What questions are posed by the instructor or the material? What is the evidence that I can find? And what is the conclusion? Having these three, and they're not the only ones, but these main parts can help you study and understand the information that you're reading about and studying for that class. So those were some ideas for active studying. The last part of this presentation is telling us to get organized. The more organized you are, the easier it will be to study. It's just a fact. As a librarian, I tell students all the time, especially in the research process, because it can be elaborate, can take several days, and there are several steps. The main point we want to stress is you want to get organized. If you're organized, you'll be able to go through the process much smoother and be able to recall information and backtrack and study. If you're not organized, you're going to have a tougher time. So how do you organize? There's a lot of ways, right? So here are some ways. You can use subtopics from the syllabus. Remember, I mentioned the student learning outcomes that are in the module or in the course or in the syllabus. You can use those to help you study for the material, especially if you know what's going to be on the exam. You can gather all your materials for one topic, put them all together in a file, and then organize them like that as you process through the class in advance of the exam, for example. And you can label them. The more labels you have, I think the easier it will be for you to get organized and stay organized and use the material in an organized fashion. So very important. So again, you could be creative in this. You can use sticky notes. You can use highlighters. You can use whatever. You can be creative. You can use whatever you want that can help you. Whatever it is that helps you will work. The point is you want to get organized. And the main requirement of getting organized is planning. So you want to give yourself time. Again, do not wait to the night before it's due. That was a presentation. Again, most of this content was taken from the University of North Carolina, and they have more information on all these topics that I covered and more. If you wish to visit them, here are their websites. Again, this presentation has been recorded, so you can come back to it later when it's available and access these, or you can contact us if you weren't able to write this down. But if you Google the Learning Center at the University of North Carolina, you should be able to find that with no problem. So I told you about two resources the library has that can help you study. One of them is called BrainFuse. The other one's called Learning Express. They are databases, for lack of a better word, that the library subscribes to, and you as a student have privilege to access it. They're available from our library homepage. I have done presentations on each of these resources. You can visit the library homepage there listed below, look for research guides, and then look for these specific guides, BrainFuse and Learning Express. And if you want, I can help you individually get in contact with me or anyone in the library, and we'll explain more in detail how they work. But these resources provide lots of materials to help us study. Study exams, flashcards, many things. How to get organized, files, lots of things to help us with studying. So in summary, plan your reading with reflection before, during, and after. Search for ways to actively study and get organized. Thank you for joining us. Next week, we will have another presentation on how to write good notes and outlines. So sign up for that one as well. My name is Jose Aranda, along with my colleagues from Doña Ana Community College Library. We thank you. Oh, I do want to plug the ARC, the Academic Readiness Centers. They're the tutoring centers from Doña Ana, and they're all over the county at all of our campuses. Here is their website. Give them a call, and you can get personalized assistance through a tutor on almost all of your topics that you are studying. Thank you.